Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Cashflow Coffee. I'm your host, Hunter King. Today, we have a really special guest that's going to be focused on branding and marketing and how can you get known in your industry. So today we have Stace Caseria. Stace is the founder of Trust Deep Branding Agency, and he is also an award-winning writer with over 20 years of experience in the branding industry. He focuses on creating long-term loyalty between businesses and individuals built on deep trust. He got his start at Mad Magazine and has created several communication projects for brands like Realty Mogul, Bose, Delta Airlines, among many other brands. So I'm really excited to have him on today. And in addition to his marketing, he also is an active and passive investor in multifamily real estate. Thanks for coming on, Stace.
Oh man, Hunter, thank you for having me. I'm really excited. Before we kicked off, before we started recording, we were just talking. And I'm genuinely excited about the mission that you have here to help beginning investors get like accelerated and have the confidence to make those first steps. So I'm looking forward to our conversation, and hopefully I'm going to give people some good insights that they can take and do something with.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit more in-depth background on your beginnings, where you come from, how did you get started in the marketing world, and then go from there?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm from the East Coast, from Connecticut originally. Now I live outside of Boston. And when I was getting out of college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I loved writing, and I thought someday I was going to write a book. That hasn't happened yet. Like a fiction book. Like I'm going to be like the great American novelist. Hasn't happened. But what I found was I've always had a good sense of humor, and I ended up at Mad Magazine one summer, and I did some writing there, and I really enjoyed it. And I said, I want to make this my career. And I decided to go into advertising, because something else that's always fascinated me was like how brands work, or how brands communicate. And I loved watching TV commercials as a kid. I know it might be weird. Like now, I mean, like we hate commercials, right? I mean, like there's just too many of them. They're everywhere. But as a kid, I loved the creativity that went into it. And so I started my career in digital advertising, helping build websites, build brands. I've done TV work, lots of videos. And as social media started, it was really an opportunity for people like me to connect more closely with consumers. So it's not so much this big, massive company talking to people, but it's like this human voice that connects one-on-one with people. So that's the same philosophy I try to bring to all of my clients now.
Excellent. So where does your company stand today? What are you guys working on, specifically maybe real estate, or you guys have your hands in some other projects, some other industries as well?
Sure. So not everything we do is in the real estate field. Like you mentioned, I'm a real estate investor and I love real estate. So that's sort of, I wouldn't necessarily call it my side gig, because it's an active thing. It's more than a hobby. It's a business in itself. But my branding work, we work with a lot of startups. So startups, small businesses, entrepreneurs. And I wouldn't say we're just locked into real estate, but we're doing a project right now for a software company that's starting out here outside of Boston. We're working with people in insurance, like an insurance broker. We're doing a project for an accounting firm. So we work with a lot of different types of business, and some of them intersect with real estate, some of them don't. But we have a project hopefully to start in January with a company that is building a syndication practice. The guy already has a really successful real estate brokerage, but he's looking to turn that into a commercial investment platform. So exciting stuff there. When I can merge like the two parts of my business, like I'm really happy.
Oh, that's awesome. Sounds like you guys are really busy and growing pretty quickly too. Um, so why is it important for people to nail down their story and their brand before they try and, start spraying and praying contacts, trying to get deals or get customers? Why is it important for people that are just starting a business to really grasp what their brand is?
Yeah, there are a number of reasons. The first one I would say, and this is the one that's the most obvious one, is that There are so many people in this world. It's like, I don't know, like 7 billion people. And it seems like half of them want to do exactly what you're doing, right? Not you personally, but like anybody who's listening. So if you're hoping to flip homes, you've got a lot of competition. If you want to wholesale, you've got a lot of competition. If you want to be a syndicator, oh my God, Rick, right now, there are so many syndicators. Like no matter what market you want to invest in, they're going to be like a dozen or a half dozen of syndicators who are doing the exact thing in that market that you want to be part of. If you want to be an agent, well, there are tons of agents at the moment. There've always been probably, but the first thing that I would say is like you need to stand out. You need to make a memorable impression that can help you stand above all the other people who are doing the thing you do.
Okay. And so when you first start out and you start creating this brand, are you specifically should new people starting out specifically focus on their strengths? Should they be worried about their weaknesses? How can they kind of use their strengths to craft that image?
Oh man, that's a great question. So there are, I say there are two things, and it's like the intersection of these two things are your brand. It's the thing you do well and that you do better than anybody else, and it's the thing that your customers need. So like you can do something really well, but if nobody needs it, you're not a business, right? I mean, like Henry Ford did something amazing. But if people didn't need better transportation, if the country wasn't growing in the way it was, cars would not have made sense. So you need to find out what you do and what customers need, and like the intersection of that is your brand. You know, it's that connecting with real needs of like what people need to get. Like we talk about like business is like serving others, right? So like what is the thing that people need and how can you deliver it? That's what your brand is.
Okay, awesome. That's really interesting. I think that's a great point too, that there's so many people out there and it's very easy to get commoditized. And especially now that we're all online now with COVID, the space is getting really crowded. So I like that you brought that point up, that not only do you need to highlight your strengths, but also you need to find what that customer needs, because otherwise, that's not really going to be a beneficial relationship for them. What advice do you have for people that maybe just starting out, they don't really have a good resume or a very substantial resume with experience?
Yeah, you know what? That might be true. You might not have years of experience and you might not have a resume. You might not have pulled down any deals yourself or, rounded up investors, but there is something that all of us have. It is a purpose, right? We all, and like whether we can articulate it, whether we've got our finger on it yet, it's in us somewhere, and there's something we want to do. And I go to real estate meetups and I talk to people because I love talking about branding, and I'm talking to guys who are investing, and I say, so why do you do this? Like, what is your reason? What's the thing that's driving you? And they're like, oh, I want to make money. I'm like, all right, well, money is not a purpose. Money is the outcome of doing this well. And so I ask people to like look in themselves and say, what is the thing that you want to do to help improve the lives of the people that you work with? And then you're like, well, I don't really necessarily want to improve their lives. You absolutely do, or you wouldn't be doing this, right? Because this is a people business. If you want to understand real estate, you have to understand people. So I would say understand your purpose and be able to articulate it, be able to easily explain it. Like that helps people quickly connect with you. It keeps you focused, and allows you, like, let's say you have employees, like you want your employees all pulling in the same direction. You want them to believe what you believe, and you want them to act consistently, because they're going to be like the front line of your business with your customers or clients. So like understand the purpose, codify it, write it down, and then share it with the people who work for you, and make sure it comes through in all of your marketing.
Yeah, that's great advice. Great. Thank you for that. If you don't mind, I kind of want to ask you a little bit of real estate specific questions.
Sure.
So when investors are first reaching out to brokers and or reaching out to investors to raise capital, what are some things that you are seeing that could help them avoid maybe some pitfalls or prevent any type of rejection from those people that may have already been established, and here comes this newcomer? What are some tips that you might have for them to help avoid some of those issues?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say, so if you have your purpose, if you can understand that, the next thing you need to do is before you create like a website or marketing or even business cards is like you need to develop a short, succinct elevator pitch. You need to hone it. It's got to be crisp. It has to be memorable. So you could say something like, "Hi, my name is John. I'm the broker who's passionate about showing people how to get into real estate investing. I find off-market deals for first-time investors." So in that statement, you have told people why you do this. Oh, I'm passionate about helping people get into real estate. You've told them the problem that you solve, which is helping people find off-market deals, and you tell them how you do that. So it's important to have like you've gone to real estate meetups and you've met a dozen people, and guy says, "Oh yeah, I'm a wholesaler." The next guy says, "Oh, I'm a wholesaler." The next guy says, "I'm a wholesaler." It's like I can't remember like this guy from that guy. You have to stand out in a way, and not just being wacky or zany or something like that. You have to show people the value you can deliver. Like if somebody said, "Hey, I'm Tony. I'm the wholesaler who helps investors make 10% more on every deal." It's like, okay, like now I'm listening, and if nothing else, I remember you. The next time I see you, I understand you stand for something. You're like, oh, you're about getting that little bit more in some way because you've got either connections or some magical skill or proprietary process or something. You stand out in some way. That's what I suggest. Like nail that elevator pitch, like that really shows that you're a little bit different, at a minimum, a little bit different from other people.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely think that's important, that elevator pitch aspect. One of the things that you sent over to me that was really intriguing was the statistic that only 37% of US consumers truly trust the brands that they're purchasing from. And that really caught me off guard. I mean, because you think of things like Nike or Delta Airlines, these brands that are easily recognizable, everyone knows about them, but they don't necessarily trust them. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, so we live in a deficit of trust at the moment. So I haven't been on Earth forever, and I don't know. So I don't know if it's been like better or worse, like 200 years ago. But I know right now we are exposed to so many marketing messages, and a lot of times we see that the company doesn't have our best interest in mind. It's like we see things like, I don't know if you remember that company Enron. I think that was probably in the 90s. It was like this massive scandal. Like one of their corporate values was like being trustworthy and integrity. It's like, wait a second, you're the complete opposite of that. I mean, so that's one of the reasons like we don't have trust in the brands that we buy. And it's not like people say, "Oh, I don't trust them, I'm not going to buy them." People are like, "I don't trust them, but I've got no other choice. I've got to buy from somebody." So people are still buying. So imagine brands that can actually create a trustworthy situation. We like my whole agency, Trust Deep is our agency. And like we're built on this idea of trust. And we say that there are 4 things you can do to help people see you as trustworthy. You can't force anybody to trust you, but you can accelerate these 4 things: your credibility, your track record, your ability to show empathy, and the last one is alignment of interests. I can break those down one by one, or if there's one that sounds more juicy or interesting to you.
Yeah, definitely. If you don't mind, could you kind of briefly touch on each of those?
Sure, absolutely. So, like trust is like this weird thing that exists. It's an emotion that we all have, and we are like social creatures. We're biologically programmed to want to trust others. But we know that we can't. That's what helps us survive, right? But if we trusted nobody, we wouldn't have society. Like we wouldn't live together. We wouldn't say, like when we were cavemen, we wouldn't have said, "Hey, like, can I trust these people to help me find food? Will they take the food if I
Yeah.
find it? Like, are they gonna like do something for me when I'm asleep?" It's like so that's how society started. Like we had to come to trust people. So the 4 factors that go into having that sense of fulfilling trust. The first one is credibility. Credibility can be made in an instant. Like if you know what you're talking about. Like so like when you show up and you're talking to a broker who might have like an off-market deal, and you don't know the language, you don't know the parameters, you don't know the market, you don't know like how real estate works, you're not going to have credibility. So you need to learn things ahead of time. You need to like speak articulately about the thing you're talking about, not necessarily with fancy words. I don't mean that. I mean, it's like you need to know the details. That's credibility. There are other factors that go into credibility, like integrity. Integrity is like your actions and your values. Do they align? I mean, or do you say one thing and do another? If that's the case, you lose credibility. But when people see that, like, what you believe in or what you say you're going to do and what you actually do are aligned, that builds credibility. Credibility can be built quickly. Some people think trust takes a long time, and it does, certain elements of it, like what I call track record. And track record applies both in personal relationships and also in business. And track record is like your reputation. It's the ability for people to believe that something I did in the past is going to happen again in the future. If you say, hey, Stace, like you did that deal over there in that building, and you've got like 15% returns or whatever it might be. Do I believe you're going to be able to do that for me again? Can you prove that there's like enough enough of a track record or enough instances of this happening that I can form a pattern and say, this thing's going to happen again. That's a track record, and it's the only piece of trust that takes a long time to establish.
Yeah, that's definitely really interesting. I think too, a lot of people just starting out, they don't realize the amount of time that it takes to get those customers on board and how important it is to just focus, especially when you're starting out, on what's your purpose. Like you said, getting that track record, getting that credibility, because if you don't have those things nailed down, you're going to be spending a lot more time and resources trying to chase people rather than having people come to you. Because
Right.
once you have the credibility, you have the track record and those things, they already know you in a sense, and they're comfortable with at least being open to your ideas.
That's right.
Would you
So
agree with that?
absolutely. So one of the things, and this might be really relevant to your audience here, is that having a track record in real estate would be fantastic, right? It'd be like the top thing. But if I'm starting out, I still have a track record as a human being, right? So there are people who know me, they know my family. I might have people from school, teachers, professors, whatever, past jobs. These are people who can help build my credibility. So let's say I'm a starting investor, and I've got my LinkedIn profile. What I want to do is connect with people who know me from the past, people who have had positive outcomes with me. I'd love those people to to write a recommendation for me there. Imagine somebody shows up in your town and nobody knows them, and they're telling you that they've done all these great things, but like if nobody can vouch for them, it's going to be really difficult for them to have any sort of trust. And if they don't have a direct track record with you, you look for like degrees of separation. We're like, okay, so they worked for this guy who I know. Let me ask Jim. Does Jim know this guy? How does he feel about it? And our network becomes this force that helps us gain the credibility and track record. So if you don't have any experience so far, you do have the ability to use your network to help build that.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great point. I think our listeners really need to hone in on that because, especially, I kind of want to get your thoughts on creating content, but it goes along with building that track record. Even if you are a new investor starting out, I mean, I have a few investments, but I'm not this, mega apartment superstar, but I'm still active, just like you are. We're both very active on LinkedIn. And I think that adds to building that track record. Can you talk a little bit on content strategy, content creation?
Sure, I could. Let me just mention the other two factors of trust, and then we'll move on to just in case anybody's listening and they're taking notes at home. So the first two, we got credibility and track record. The third one is empathy. So empathy is like this human ability to show that we understand other people's needs. And a lot of time people will dismiss empathy thinking it's like a soft skill and doesn't apply in business. And it's actually the biggest determining factor in generating trust with somebody, your ability to understand their needs. And the quickest way to generate empathy is like, you don't even have to do anything. You just have to listen. You have to really listen. So even if there's somebody you disagree with, even if there's somebody you agree with, listening to them validates their concerns and their needs. It doesn't mean you necessarily have to agree with somebody. So let's say you're trying to sell a property and somebody says, I need to get, $400,000 for this. And you're thinking, it's 300. It's only worth 300. Just because you understand their need doesn't mean you agree with them. You've listened to them, and you've heard them out, and you get a sense of where they're coming from. And then you're like, well, maybe we can come up with another solution. We can structure this in another way. That's what empathy does, and it's incredibly powerful. And the last one I'll mention quickly is alignment of interests. Alignment of interest means that, like, my motivations and your motivations are aligned. It's not just that we want the same outcome, is that we want the same things to happen along the way. So you might sign up with a syndicator, and your goal for that project is to have a 20% return on investment. And his is too. But you want to do it in a way that's ethical and legal, and he doesn't care. Well, you guys want the same outcome, but you're not willing to go there the same way, so you don't have an alignment of interests. So those four things have to be in any relationship in different proportions, right? It depends on the type of deal, the type of relationship. But yeah, I want to get back to content. But, like, do you have any questions on those four factors of trust before we jump into content?
Yeah, a little bit on empathy. You said that, empathy is, a lot of people think it's more of a soft skill, but it's a lot about listening and truly understanding. I'm glad you brought that up, because there are still things where you're speaking with someone, and you may not feel like you have something to offer, but oftentimes I think people fail to search through their own network. Well, this person is looking for this, or this is what they're focused on. I'm not necessarily, focused on that type of field or industry, but I know someone that is, and I can connect them with that. I think you can convey that you truly care about that person by, just sending them resources. Hey, we were talking the other day, I found this, thought you might think it would be interesting. Things like that. People truly appreciate, and I think it'll help you grow, and it'll also convey that message of empathy.
Absolutely. So what you did there is you practiced listening. So you were having a conversation with somebody, and they said, these are things that I'm looking for. This is something that I need. And you were able to, like, take that in and remember it. The next time, like, you saw this other person or a resource or an article or something, you remembered, like, oh, this guy, he says he needs this. This would be helpful for him, and you can share that with him. That's exactly how you start to create empathy. That's fantastic.
Okay, awesome. So, taking those four factors, and then kind of creating your brand, and introducing yourself to the world, what advice do you have for them to kind of get on that content creation cycle where they're posting on different platforms, and starting to get their name out there?
Yeah. So it comes back to having a brand, and thinking about yourself not as a business but as a brand. And if you don't have a business, you are a personal brand. So I like to think that, like, these days, creating a personal brand is like the equivalent of having an advanced degree. So there was a point in time where people would say, if you want to succeed, you have to go to college. And then they're like, oh, if you want to succeed, you got to get an MBA or a
Yeah.
master's. It's like, okay, it keeps getting ratcheted down. Like, now you need to stand out. You need to create a brand. So the brand is going to be like your guiding principles, your values. It's not just what you do or how you do it, but it's what you stand for. And once you have an idea of that, you can start to create content that is consistent, and it says something. It says something about you, and it teaches people, like, whatever you're trying to convey. It's more than just like facts and figures. It's your point of view on that topic. And that's what you're going to become known for. You're not just going to become known for being a realtor or a broker or a flipper, a house flipper, or a syndicator, because there are a lot of those people. The way you're going to stand out is by what you stand for.
Excellent. Awesome. Um, that's a really great point. I'm not sure I have much more to add to that. You kind of really hit it on the head. Um, let's see. I kind of want to talk about you personally now, with
Sure.
your investing, and kind of the things that you're working on. So if you don't mind me asking, how did you go from being a writer and working with a whole bunch of different consumer brands to um, diving into the real estate investing?
All right. You want to know, want to know how this happened? How I got here? So, like, Yeah. So the way I got started in real estate was my mother suggested or recommended that my brother and I like do some real estate investing. So she's been an entrepreneur forever, and she owned her own business. She owned a restaurant, and she started buying single family homes. And she said, "Hey, you guys should really look at this." And the thing was, she like showed us the math, and she said, "So." This is what my expenses are. This is what rent is. You can see that there's money left over. And for the most part, there isn't a lot of work here. It's not like going to my 9 to 5 job or owning a restaurant, which she worked around the clock. And so she started building a small portfolio, and she said, "Hey, why don't you guys do this?" And like, this is what most kids do. They're like, "Oh, that sounds good, Mom. I'm not going to do that." So she made it impossible for us not to do this. So she like found the properties for us. She lined up the she lined up the financing. I bet she even probably gave us the down payment, because these were not like big houses. I mean, they were like small, very affordable homes. And essentially said, "This is, you guys have to do this because it's going to really change the way you change your life." And it has. So like slowly over, now 25 years now, which, wow, it's a long time, maybe 23 years. I've built this small portfolio, and so my brother and I together have a small portfolio of single-family homes in Connecticut, and we've been selling those the past 2 years because the market's been fantastic. We still have a couple of them, but we're waiting to see what's happening in the world. At the same time, though, I bought a small apartment building here in Massachusetts a few years back. I just looked at it, I did the numbers, and I was like, I saw where the rents were. I thought about the area. I'm like, these rents are so far off. I loaded it on that, and I said, you know what? Going from a single family home to like a building with many units in it, it's like, wow, there's like this economy of scale. I'm like, I should try and do this on a bigger scale. So now I'm looking to actually do some syndication in the future. But before I did that, I've invested passively with another syndicator. So I'm looking for a way to scale up both actively and passively. But I love it. I love like the ability to help people and give people a place to live, and like give them like a safe home, and it just feels good. The money's good too.
Yeah, definitely. That's really cool that you had that role model there that would actively encourage you to take a risk like that. I think a lot of parents, they themselves, they're not very familiar with the space, so they're telling their kids, just save up for retirement. But you had
Yeah.
someone that was, encouraging to go out there and take a little bit of risk. So that's really cool. And obviously it worked out well for you guys. You're still doing it. You're still here and investing in more properties.
Yeah. One of my earliest memories is actually, so my parents, before my dad died, my parents owned a two-family. And I remember as a kid going there and painting, and I must have been like 3 years old. And I don't know what kind of mess I was making, but I remember being there, in this, and like, but I didn't quite understand at the time. It's like, there's this house that we go to and we do things on occasionally, or my dad would go and mow the lawn or whatever. But it's been part of like our family. Now that I think about it, for almost as long as I can remember. And then like my mom took some time off of real estate investing and then came back into it. And yeah, having that as a role model. I wonder though, if like the people who are listening now, even if they're not getting that sort of encouragement at home, I think like social media and just like the things that exist online, like YouTube, like podcasts like this, can be that encouragement, can be that role model to say, hey, this guy did it, I can do it too.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great point. And that it takes a little bit of time to build up that encouragement, especially we're talking about real estate. That's a big commitment. And that's not
Yeah,
something that you can get out of very easily. Once you're in, you got to find a way to make it work. Right.
you
So
do.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. What are you guys seeing on that part of the country as far as, with everyone moving? Are you seeing a lot of traffic from New York to where you're at now?
Yeah, that's so. Our properties in Connecticut are probably about an hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes outside of New York, and there was a massive influx, or there probably still is, of people leaving New York, going like all over, trying to just saying, hey, either maybe it's fears of being in a small confined area when there might be another pandemic. It might be like, hey, I can work remotely now. Why am I paying this crazy rent in New York? And I have a friend down there who's looking to buy a home, and he has such like, I don't know about the market where you guys are, but like, so he and his wife will go and look at a home, and like before they've left before they left the property, like there's like three offers, and they accept it. So it's like moving really quickly. Um,
Wow.
here in Boston, it's sort of like that. It's not as bad, but what I am seeing is um, I just looked at some financials on a small apartment building earlier in the week, and it's positioned in a way I probably wouldn't have considered it at this price. I'm like, oh, that's a lot of money, like out there. But what it has is it's like right on the interstate from Boston, this town, and like people are like moving out from Boston. So like now it starts to make sense. I'm like, I'm not sure if the numbers work exactly, but now I'm at least looking at it. I'm like, I wouldn't have considered this at that price point like a year ago. I've been like, this is crazy. I can make more elsewhere, but that's something I think that's like we're seeing this. I guess this diffusion from like major areas out a little bit, and like I don't know if that's going to be long term, but it's certainly happening.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely interesting. It'll be interesting to see where we're at into 2021, going into
Yeah.
22. I'm sure there's still much more to come that we couldn't possibly predict the way this
Oh
year has
yeah.
gone. So
Yeah. Anybody who makes a living predicting things like a year ago, like they're scratching their head now. I mean, like this has
they're probably
been
finding a
one.
new job right now.
Yeah, it's been a wild year.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Would you encourage, I like the fact that you pointed out that you invested passively first in a syndication. Would you encourage others that are just starting out to take that same route? Because like you said, there's a ton of syndicators entering the space right now, but I'm worried that a lot of them are kind of on this learning curve, and so that there's an added risk to that factor if someone's doing their first syndication. What are the benefits of investing passively in a syndication first before you go out and raise money for your own deal?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of benefits. It's like, so you learn the lingo. So you're going to get an offering memorandum. You're gonna read details, and then you're going to say, oh, this is how you talk about, rather than a single family home. This is how we talk about an apartment complex. These are the financials we're looking at. These are the different factors that are occurring. These are you know the different team members you're going to need. You start to understand like this is how this thing comes together. Um, I think you're also gonna get more confidence yourself. Like like when we talk about trust, the first person you need to trust in life is yourself. You need to believe you can do something. And if you have any hesitancy, it's gonna show up. People are gonna see that. So if you're able to get your feet wet, see how something works, see a project come full circle, and you don't necessarily have to wait till it comes full circle if they're planning to sell the building, just as long as you start to get an understanding, you might meet other investors in that group who you can partner up with. So that's like another avenue here. And like you've invested money. So the organizers of that deal see you as a customer. So don't be afraid to ask them questions about how these things work. And they should be sharing with you as many details as they can, everything you're looking for. So like there are gurus that we can see online, and like I don't necessarily have access to them, but this guy who I invested money with, he's an email away, and he should be able to answer my questions.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. That's a lot of valuable advice. And like you touched on, you get that inside look on the offering memorandum. You know how, you know, what documents do you need to even be able to complete this? I think that's really important so that, you know, you find a deal and it's like, oh crap, well, I don't even have an attorney set up. Like, how am I supposed to get this done within the due diligence period, you know? So I think that's definitely really important for people to understand is, you know, let someone else lead you a little bit and just pick up on what they're doing. You don't have to recreate the wheel in any way, especially with real estate. A lot of it is once you get your systems down, it's rinse and repeat, right?
Mhm.
So once you have those basic fundamentals nailed down, I think that's going to shorten your learning curve, and it'll help protect other people's money too, because
Yeah.
you just have a better understanding of the way it all works.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and of course, reading books. There's some really good books on the topic, but yeah, uh, asking lots of questions from
Yeah.
the people who've done it, and the people who let them make mistakes that you can learn from.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
So let's see. I got a couple other questions.
yeah.
So what was it like writing for Mad Magazine? I know that this is completely like left field, but I love the illustrations. I love, like, my parents were big fans and everything like that. What was it like, going
Yeah.
through that experience?
It was the highlight of my life. I feel like I've lived every 12-year-old boy's dream. So how it worked was like I was really, there was a point in my education where I was like not happy with school, and I wanted to like I wanted to leave. I wanted to leave school, and a teacher of mine, a professor, said, "Why don't you go get like a fun internship somewhere, and like it'll reinvigorate you, and you'll come back and finish your education, then go off and do whatever you want to do." I'm like, "Oh, this is not a bad idea." So there was an internship at MAD that was offered, and this was like pre-internet days. It was like '96, so internet existed, but like people really didn't use it. But what I did was I knew it was the internet was like coming about. So what I did was I took an episode of, or excuse me, an issue of Mad Magazine, and to win the internship, you had to like write articles for them. And so I wrote it as though like Mad Magazine in the digital age, and it was they loved it, because it wasn't even on their radar yet, because like most of the editors there were older guys in their 50s, 60s, probably 70s too, so it wasn't on their radar. But like for me, I mean, like I was in college at the time. I mean, it was like it was an exciting thing that was happening. So like um when I went there, they treated me like I was like a real editor who had worked there forever. I got real assignments. I wrote material. I judged all the stuff that came in, because like a lot of the materials that come into MAD were written by freelance writers. So stuff would come in, and you'd have to like parse it. Like this is good, that's bad. And so I would take my stack of like the things that were good and hand it to the next guy, and he would go through and weed it out a
Just
little bit
filter
more.
down the list.
Right, exactly. But like another amazing thing that I got to do was like give tours. So like when people would come into the office, like people would just like stop by all day long, and I would give the tour. So like the first thing I did on the first day, they handed me a book, The History of Mad, and I have it somewhere here in the house. But I learned everything about the magazine, the publication, all the highs and lows, and I'd give these massive. I'm not massive. I would give these like really intricate tours, like taking people through, and like some famous people came through, and it was really cool.
Awesome. Do you think they're like going through that journey? Do you think there's some skills that you picked up that are contributing to your success now?
Yeah, what's interesting is that, and I didn't realize this for a long time, is that like we each have the ability to achieve great things. And so the building that Mad Magazine was in, I think it was, I forgot maybe it was owned by Time Warner at the time. And so like they owned DC Comics, and they owned like a number of fashion magazines. So I'd get in the elevator, and I was like this goofy kid, this college kid, and I was probably dressed in ripped jeans and a t-shirt or something. And I'd be in the elevator next to these people who were people. I'm assuming they're going to the fashion magazine, like business people who are dressed really, really nicely. And I didn't come from that background. Even though, my mom had businesses and things like that. Like I wasn't used to like a white collar world, and I didn't really grasp that at the time. But like I saw that there's this way that these people are presenting themselves. I'm like, I didn't know enough to say, hey, that's what I should be doing. And it took me like a number of years to say the way you present yourself makes a huge difference in the way people react to you. So I'm not suggesting that people act forced or phony or anything like that. It's just be aware of how you show up, and like that has helped me. Like when I go and talk to brokers or realtors, or when I talk to clients, it's like I'm a guy who wrote for Mad Magazine, so I'm a little bit wacky, but my clients don't need to know that on the first meeting. I mean, like I need to get to know them first before like some of that comes out. Like, so that's one thing that I would say working at Mad had taught me, is that like just understand like the place where you're in, and learn from those around you.
Definitely. People decide what they think of you in the first 5 seconds, right? However the saying goes. So that's
Yeah.
definitely a great point. Great point.
Yeah, people
Um,
decide about your website in less than a second, and like it's like in 0.05 seconds that the people have made a decision. That's how
that's
quickly.
crazy.
But like meeting a person, it does take a couple of seconds, and people will decide instantly, like whether I'm going to allow this person to to begin to earn some of my trust. Like they make that decision, and then they go down a path. No, they're not going to. You're not going to earn trust at that point, or you're going to. You have that chance to earn trust.
Okay. What, so I just want to touch on that a little bit. That was a great point. How do you know when it's time to move on from someone? Maybe it's a customer or someone you're trying to raise money from. How do you know, maybe our interests are not aligned?
Mhm. Wow. So that's a that's tough, So in business, when you have clients, if you're running a business and if you have employees, let's say you have a family too, you're responsible to more than just yourself. And if you choose not to do business with somebody anymore, there's a chance you're going to reduce your ability to provide, you know, the ability to pay your mortgage or feed your family, or plan for your dreams and hopes, and stuff like that. But it's real. Like what you're saying is this real thing that happens. Like sometimes you're just like, this isn't going in the way I want it to go. Like I'm putting energy in that there's too much friction. So I there are different signs. Like if you need to explain things multiple times to people and they're not getting it, it's probably not because you're not explaining it. It's just that they don't agree with it, and they might be looking to rationalize like what you're talking about in a way that makes sense to them, and they're hoping that you're going to either explain it in a way that like connects with them, or you're going to change the position of it. So that's one sign. Like when you just can't connect with somebody on something, you keep having to explain it. If you see something that like somebody's behavior not aligning with their values, that's a serious red flag. Because like I was talking to a syndicator, and we were talking about something, and he was talking about, it was something minor about like, oh, can you pay me this way so I don't have to pay taxes or something like that. And I'm trying to think what the thing was. I think he wanted me to Venmo him like a payment for something. And I was like, that's kind of weird. But like, I'm like, wow, you're trying to like skirt the system here. And that's like a minor thing, but it made me say, what else might be going on with this guy that makes me think, I mean, like, if maybe like my values aligned with his, maybe I'm like, oh, screw the government. I don't want to pay taxes, but it didn't. So that's one thing. Like if you see that somebody's values don't align with their behavior, or if they say things like repeatedly, like if you trust somebody, people will mess up occasionally. We're imperfect creatures, right? But if there's a pattern, or if people don't find a way to recover, or if they don't admit fault, that's another sign. It's like, I don't know. I mean, like because when the chips are down, I mean, am I going to be able to rely on this person, and trust them? So you have to make those decisions.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's a key indicator that if someone's willing to try and cheat the system on something so small, what happens when you get into those big deals and you guys run into some serious problems, then you're kind of SOL because you've already partnered with that person. So I like
Yeah.
the fact that you brought that up, that identifying those little things early on can help develop and take that relationship either to the next level, or maybe, hey, this isn't the right thing for us right now.
Right.
So thank you for touching on that. Do you have just some advice for anyone that's listening right now that, right now, I'm sure you gave us a lot of information. What would you, just one piece of advice that's really major for them to take away from this?
Yeah. If I look back and if I were to like tell myself like 20 years ago, like some advice, I would say, have confidence in yourself, take some risks, and start today. If you want to get involved in real estate, boom, do it. That's what I'd say. Believe in yourself and start doing it. Start small.
Okay, awesome. So, Stace, how can people get in touch with you? I'm sure they still have a lot more questions. People are going to want to be reaching out. What are some links that they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, so the best way to get in touch with us, get in touch with our agency is at our website, which is trustdeepagency.com, www.trustdeepagency.com. Or if you you can find me on LinkedIn. I think my LinkedIn profile is actually like linkedin.com slash whatever it is slash Stace, Stace. I think I'm the only one, or I was the first one, like the first person named Stace to have a LinkedIn. So Stace Caseria on LinkedIn or our website, Trust Deep Agency.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, Stace. I appreciate you taking the time today. Hopefully, we can have you back on, talk a little bit more about branding and real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to like talk about something specific like websites, we could do that.
Okay.
If your listeners wanted me to give like an audit of their website, we do that too. But if you want, we can do that live on the air too. If you wanted to do that someday, that could be fun.
That is actually a really great idea. I'm going to write that down real quick. That I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that would be fun.
That's a good
That'd be
content
fun.
idea.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, definitely, we'll have to set that up. I would love to do that with you sometime. So thank you, Stace, for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you, Hunter. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Uh,